Have you ever wondered what happens when you give the universe's ultimate power to someone who completely refuses to let it define her? In this timeline, Goku is a mortal earthling with nothing but an unbreakable spirit, and Chi-Chi is the low-class Saiyan sent to scrub the planet clean. But when fate forces a reluctant warrior to embrace her bloodline to protect the people she loves, the entire galaxy changes. Forget everything you know about the Saiyan Prince and the galactic tyrants, because this time, the universe is about to be saved by a housewife. In a universe almost exactly like the one you know, a single space pod tore through Earth's atmosphere and crashed into a quiet mountain valley. But the child curled inside was not a boy. When the hatch hissed open, an old martial artist named Gohan found a baby girl with a brown tail, screaming with a fury far too big for her tiny body. He named her Chi-Chi. She was, by every Saiyan record, the infant Kakarota, born low-class, shipped off-world, destined to purge a backwater planet. But like the story you remember, she took a terrible fall down a ravine, cracked her head on the stones, and woke gentle. The conqueror's programming shattered. What remained was a fierce, loving, sharp-tongued little girl, with a Saiyan engine humming quietly beneath the warmth. Grandpa Gohan raised her in the wild, and she grew up wild-hearted and kind. But one gray afternoon, a pack of mountain beasts cornered the old man, and something in Chi-Chi snapped. Her small fists moved faster than the eye could follow, and the creatures were flung across the clearing like leaves in a storm. When it was over, the child stood trembling over the wreckage, terrified of her own hands. That evening, Grandpa Gohan knelt beside her by the fire, holding her shaking fingers in his weathered palms.
That strength of yours, little one, it's a gift and a burden both. A strong heart knows when to hold back.
She nodded, wide-eyed, and made a silent promise to herself. She would never be the kind of strong that frightened the people she loved. The reluctant warrior was born that night. Elsewhere on Earth, in the shadow of a great volcanic castle, a different child was growing up. The son of the mighty Ox King, an earthling boy raised in the world of martial arts. His name was Goku. No alien blood, no hidden ceiling-breaking power, only a bottomless appetite, boundless courage, and a grin that never quit. What he had, he earned with sweat. Years later, fate crossed their paths on a lonely road, exactly as the old story goes, only flipped. Goku, a genuinely skilled young fighter, watched slack-jawed as a girl his age casually hurled a boulder the size of a house to clear the way.
Whoa, how'd you do that?
Do what? It was in the road.
He had never seen anything like her. She, meanwhile, thought nothing of it, and was mostly annoyed he was staring. By the end of their adventure together, the dazzled boy blurted out a promise he only half understood.
Hey, when we grow up, you should marry me.
You can't just say something like that.
But flustered, blushing, and secretly delighted that someone saw her and not her strength, she agreed. Neither of them realized they'd just set the whole future in motion. The impossibly strong girl and the boy who adored her rode off into the years ahead. They both trained under Master Roshi on his tiny island, and here the timeline split for good. Chi-Chi's growth was simply inhuman. Every bruise made her stronger. Every defeat doubled her power overnight. Within weeks, she was lifting what Goku strained for months to move. The old master watched her spar and muttered that in all his centuries, he'd never seen talent like this. Goku noticed too. He was a proud martial artist, and being left in the dust by the girl he loved stung more than he ever let show. But here is the thing that would define him for the rest of his life. He never sulked, and he never quit.
All right, that's a new record for you. Guess I'm just gonna have to catch up.
He woke earlier, trained harder, and cheered the loudest when she surpassed him again. His pride bent, but it never broke. They married beneath the great volcano, the Ox King weeping buckets, Roshi giggling behind his sunglasses, and so the strangest household in the world locked into place. Chi-Chi, the most powerful being on the planet, wanting nothing more than a peaceful home and a family, while Goku, the mortal, itched endlessly for the next great fight he could never hope to win.
Get back here! You are not running off to fight a mountain bandit before dinner!
She spent half her marriage physically dragging him out of danger by his collar. When their son was born, Chi-Chi held him and wept. A beautiful boy with his father's bright eyes and, curling behind him, a small brown tail. They named him Gohan, after the grandfather who had taught her mercy. He carried his mother's staggering Saiyan potential and his father's unbreakable heart, and neither parent yet understood what a dangerous, wonderful combination that would prove to be. The years of peace could not last. One afternoon the sky screamed, and a space pod slammed into the earth. The warrior who climbed out wore a cruel, hungry grin. and his scanner turned, beeped, and locked onto a single power signature in a quiet farmhouse where a mother was hanging laundry.
There you are, Kakarota.
He landed before her with a mocking laugh and spoke the truth of her blood.
You're my sister, a Saiyan warrior, sent to this mud ball as an infant to scrub it clean of life.
He gestured at the green hills, the little house, the laundry line.
So tell me, sister, why is any of this still breathing?
Chi-Chi stood very still, the laundry basket slipping from her hands as the ground fell out from under everything she thought she was. Then she lifted her chin and refused him flat.
I don't care what I was sent here to be. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I am nobody's conqueror.
It was the first time she said her theme aloud, and Raditz's grin curdled into rage.
Then I'll take the boy and beat the obedience back into you.
The fight went badly, fast. Raditz was a trained killer, and Chi-Chi, for all her raw power, had spent her whole life holding back, terrified of what she could do. He pinned her, laughing, one boot pressing the breath from her chest, little Gohan screaming from inside the ruined house. For one horrible moment, it looked like the story would end right there, and then Goku stepped between them. A mortal man against a monster from the stars. No tail, no hidden power, no chance. He knew exactly what he was doing. He wrapped his arms around Raditz's torso and locked them tight, pinning the Saiyan in place.
Chi-Chi, now! Hit us both! Don't you dare hold back!
Chi-Chi hesitated, tears streaming, and Goku met her eyes and grinned. That same unquitting grin from the mountain road, all those years ago.
It's okay, Chi-Chi. This is the strongest I'll ever get to be. The guy who buys you the 1 second you need.
She struck. Raditz fell. And so did the man who threw his life away without a shred of regret, purely to protect his Saiyan wife and son. Chi-Chi held his body as the light left the valley, and something inside her began to crack, a white-hot Saiyan rage rising up her spine, begging to be unleashed. But it did not transform her, not yet. Her fury was Saiyan, but her reason was love, and love told her that vengeance would not bring him back. She would need a different kind of strength. She would need to become the very thing she had spent her whole life refusing to be. Before he faded, Raditz spat a final warning.
2 more of us are coming, far stronger than I ever was. And they'll be here within the year.
Then, from the shadows of the wreckage, an unlikely figure stepped forward. One who had felt the child's extraordinary power from across the mountains.
The boy has a monster sleeping inside him. Let me wake it. You have your own war to prepare for.
Reluctantly, a grieving Chi-Chi let her son go. Refusing to sit idly on Earth while her husband's soul drifted in the afterworld, Chi-Chi stormed the lookout, demanding a way to reach him. Recognizing the fierce, untapped power born of her grief, Kami granted the desperate mother passage to the realm of the dead, directing her toward the end of the universe's long road to seek the one teacher who could help her save him. And so Chi-Chi did the thing she'd sworn never to do. She embraced her Saiyan blood. She traveled to the afterlife to train on the tiny planet of the North Quadrant's master, King Kai, learning to stop flinching from her own power. Not for glory, not for conquest, for one reason only, to navigate the spirit world, wish her husband back from death, and prepare to protect her son from the Saiyans rushing toward Earth. A year later, 2 more pods split the sky. From them stepped a giant brute and, beside him, a compact warrior with a cruel smirk and an aura of absolute superiority. His scanner swept the battlefield, hunting the strongest power on the planet, and traced it not to a seasoned warrior, but to a woman in a homemade fighting dress who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else.
That's it? That's the power level that's been giving me a headache since orbit?
Vegeta's entire worldview cracked in real time. The strongest Saiyan he had ever sensed, stronger perhaps than himself, was a low-class female who kept glancing at the horizon like she was worried about dinner burning.
A third-class whelp? A woman? Playing house on a dirt planet?
He was fascinated. He was offended. And in a way no prince could ever admit, he was deeply and personally insulted by the universe itself. Nappa attacked first, and it went poorly for him. Chi-Chi flattened the giant with a ferocity that erupted the instant he so much as looked toward her son. Then she immediately looked embarrassed by how easily it had happened.
Oh, I didn't mean to hit quite that hard.
Vegeta watched his comrade fall and felt something entirely new. Not fear, exactly. Obsession. He had to understand how this happened. He had to surpass it. Their duel was brutal, and the engine of this whole saga sparked to life inside it. Every taunt Vegeta hurled bounced clean off her.
You carry the blood of the proudest warrior race in the cosmos. Show me pride. Show me heritage.
Can we please wrap this up? I have a family to get home to.
His royal ego had never met a weapon so devastating as complete indifference. In the end, Chi-Chi didn't win with technique or heritage. She won the way she always would, through raw, protective ferocity that ignited the moment Gohan was in danger. Bloodied and beaten, Vegeta dragged himself back toward his pod.
This isn't over, woman. I'll find the source of that strength if it takes me the rest of my life.
As the pod screamed away into space, he swore that private oath, and the rivalry was set. Pride against protection. From that day forward, the trail of the fight led to a distant green world where scattered Dragon Balls promised a way to bring Goku back. Chi-Chi went, the strongest fighter in that whole corner of the galaxy, and still, stubbornly, the reluctant warrior. She had tried to leave Gohan behind on Earth, locked safe in the mountain house under the Ox King's guard. But the boy had slipped onto the ship before takeoff, refusing to let his mother face the monsters who killed his father alone. She had been too heartbroken to send him back, and now he was here. So, drawn like a shark to blood, did Vegeta. But Namek belonged to a monster. A pale, elegant figure hovered above the dying planet like a small, cold god, his soldiers scurrying to obey. When Chi-Chi and her crew were intercepted, it was Lord Frieza's elegant, cruel right-hand elite, Zarbon, who sneered down at her Saiyan tail and delivered the mocking truth.
Enjoy the view while you can, monkey. That is Lord Frieza. He's the one who did it. He wiped out the entire Saiyan race. Your whole bloodline. Gone. Because of him.
It landed on her like a physical blow, and it complicated everything. She had rejected being Saiyan. She had spent her whole life refusing the heritage. And now she stood before the one who had murdered every last one of her people, and found, to her own confusion, that it hurt.
Why does this ache? I never even wanted any of it.
Could you mourn a home you never wanted? Could you grieve a family you'd only just learned you had? The question buried itself deep in her chest and waited. The battle for Namek reached its grim climax, and Frieza's final form was everything the legends feared. Even after Piccolo arrived to reinforce the crew, the tyrant dismantled them with terrifying ease, leaving Krillin, Gohan, Vegeta, and the Namekian warrior beaten and broken across the shattered earth. He toyed with them without a shred of effort.
Do keep struggling. It's the only part of this I find remotely entertaining.
Now, standing over the wreckage of her fallen allies, a bruised and exhausted Chi-Chi was back directly toward the edge of everything she was willing to lose. Then Frieza turned his cold gaze on Gohan, and to prove a point, he struck the boy down before his mother's eyes. The child's small body crumpled to the cracked earth.
There. Now perhaps you'll take this seriously.
The whole planet seemed to go silent. Chi-Chi stood frozen, staring at her son, and inside her, something ancient and terrible and long restrained finally tore free of its chains. The scream that came out of her was not human. Golden light exploded upward in a pillar that split the clouds, her black hair burning gold, her eyes igniting to teal fire, the very rock beneath her feet shattering and rising. In this timeline, the first Super Saiyan in 10,000 years was not born of a warrior's death. It was born of a mother's rage, the most earned transformation in any universe, because it belonged to the most family-driven soul in the whole story. While the sky tore open with her fury, the rest of the crew was working the only angle they had left. Bulma and Dende had located the Namekian Dragon Balls, racing against time, desperate to align the chaotic pieces of their impossible hope. As Chi-Chi stood at the threshold of losing herself, the sky darkened, the great dragon Porunga coiled through the clouds, and the wish, long, complicated, and final, was granted. A familiar energy flared to life in the crater. And here, in the eye of the storm, the human mattered most of all. Goku, wished back, standing at the edge of the crater, saw not just power, but danger. The bloodlust in his wife's golden eyes threatened to swallow the woman he loved whole. He did not try to fight her. He simply crossed the raging aura, pressed his forehead to hers, and reminded her who she was.
Hey! Hey! Look at me! You're not a weapon. You're not a conqueror. You're a mom. And your kid needs your protection.
His heart was the leash on the monster her rage could have become. Anchored, whole, and furious, Chi-Chi turned the full weight of a Super Saiyan's wrath on the tyrant who had erased her people. The duel that followed shook Namek to its molten core, and for the first time in his long reign, Frieza knew fear.
Impossible. This cannot be.
In the end, the Emperor fell, and the story's great skeleton held its familiar shape. but the hand that broke him belonged to a housewife. When it was over, Chi-Chi powered down and stood shaking on the ruined ground. And she was not triumphant. She was afraid. Because in the white heat of that transformation, she had felt how much the Saiyan blood loved it. The violence, the dominance, the joy of the kill.
It felt good. God help me, it felt wonderful.
She had tasted the conqueror she was born to be, and it terrified her more than any villain ever could. She held tightly to Goku and Gohan as they boarded the ship, leaving Namek far quieter than she had arrived, carrying a silent war inside her heart. The years that followed brought new nightmares, cold mechanical monsters born of a mad scientist's hate, and finally, a shape-shifting horror that hungered to become perfect. The crew fought and bled and adapted, the familiar war grinding forward. But beneath the spectacle, the real story had quietly become about a boy, and a mother, and a father who saw them both more clearly than either could see themselves. For young Gohan had inherited it all, his mother's staggering Saiyan power, buried like a dormant volcano beneath his gentle, book-loving heart. And as that power began to surface in the boy, Chi-Chi watched with a dread she couldn't name. She saw her own golden fire flickering in her son's eyes, and her oldest fear rose up to meet it.
What if he becomes it? The thing I ran from my whole life, what if it's already in him?
It was Goku who found her one evening, standing in the doorway, arms wrapped tight around herself, watching their son train. He didn't have her power, he couldn't sense what she sensed, but he knew people in a way raw strength never could.
He's got your strength and my heart, Chi-Chi. That kid, he's gonna be just fine.
It was the human's greatest gift, not to fight, but to see, and it steadied her when nothing else could. And Goku was right. When the final battle came, it was the boy who ended it. But he ended it not as a conqueror hungry for dominance, but as his mother's son, unleashing terrible power only to protect the people he loved, then setting it down the instant the danger passed. The fear was disproven. The next generation inherited the theme and lived it. Gohan was strength in service of love, exactly as his parents had raised him to be. Peace returned, and for a while the strange family thrived. But the universe was not done testing them. A new horror bubbled up from ancient magic. Pink, giggling, world-devouring chaos. And the whole team was hurled into their most desperate war yet. One that would demand they fight as one, or not at all. Here the saga found its silliest, warmest register. To match Boo's impossible power, the fighters learned the sacred art of fusion. And the results were spectacular. When Chi-Chi and Vegeta were forced to merge into a single body, the new warrior spent half the battle arguing with itself in two voices.
We finish this with pride, woman, or we don't finish it at all. We finish it fast so I can get out of your ridiculous head, you insufferable man.
A proud prince and a fed-up housewife, sharing one body, agreeing on absolutely nothing, except that Boo needed dealing with so everyone could go home. By now, though, something in Chi-Chi had finally healed. The war inside her, Saiyan blood against a mother's heart, had quietly ended in a truce. She no longer feared her own power, because she finally understood it.
Strength was never the enemy, it's what I do with it, and I know exactly who I'm doing it for.
The reluctant warrior had become, at last, simply a warrior who knew precisely what she was fighting for. And it was that spirit, not battle joy, not conquest, but a mother's fierce, unconditional love, that rallied the whole broken world and powered the energy that finally undid the Pink Devil. Boo fell the way such things always fall in this family's story, through love and stubbornness, and the refusal to ever give up on each other. The great skeleton of the old war was complete. Somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, Vegeta had a moment he would never, ever admit to. Watching Chi-Chi throw herself between Boo and her son, without a flicker of hesitation, the prince who had spent years chasing the source of her strength finally glimpsed the truth of it. He said nothing. He scowled and looked away. But the seed of real respect had, at long last, been planted in the proudest heart in the universe. And so the old story ended, and the new one began, because peace, in this family, was only ever the space between gods. Deep in the cosmos, on a world beyond mortal reach, Beerus, uncurled from a centuries-long slumber, yawned, stretched, and murmured a name he had dreamed of.
The Super Saiyan God. Yes, I'd like to meet him.
The god of destruction was awake, and he was coming to Earth to find it. Across the cosmos, a panicked King Kai felt the destroyer's awakening and immediately sent a desperate telepathic warning straight to Chi-Chi's mind. He warned her that Beerus was hunting a Super Saiyan god, and since she was the most powerful Saiyan in the universe, the deity would inevitably target Earth. If she hid or refused him, the volatile god would erase her home and family in a heartbeat. The reluctant warrior had no choice. She had to face a god to buy her world a tomorrow. Beerus arrived on Earth right in the middle of Bulma's birthday celebration at Capsule Corp, expecting a legendary warrior worthy of a god's attention. What he found instead was a tense crew trying to act natural, and Chi-Chi in a party apron fiercely guarding the buffet table, thoroughly annoyed at having her afternoon hijacked by a talking cat and his impossibly polite attendant.
I am looking for the Super Saiyan God. If no such being exists, this celebration becomes a wake.
I don't care if you're the king of the cosmos. You don't ruin my friend's birthday. Sit down, eat the pudding, and wait your turn.
Outmatched and secretly terrified by King Kai's warning, she used her sharp tongue as a shield to keep the ultimate executioner away from her family. The tension inevitably snapped when Majin Buu refused to share the food, provoking the deity's volatile temper. A skirmish erupted across the courtyard. Chi-Chi fought with ferocious, reckless willpower, her standard Super Saiyan aura flaring to shield her son and friends, but Beerus deflected her blows with effortless grace. Beside her, a panicked Vegeta swallowed his pride, leaping into the fray to absorb the god's devastating counters.
Control your temper, woman. You cannot fight a force of nature with domestic spite.
Beerus was thoroughly amused. Mortals usually begged. These two were bickering while facing absolute annihilation, and Whis, floating serenely above the cracking patio, was absolutely delighted by the buffet. With the party in ruins and Beerus raising his hand to erase the planet, it was Goku, the mortal, who stepped between them. He lacked the raw power to scratch a god, but his unbreakable spirit and sharp eyes gave him a clarity the powerful lacked.
Wait! Lord Beerus, you want a Super Saiyan God, right? Destroying the planet means you'll never find him. Give us 5 minutes. Bulma, get the Earth Dragon Balls. We'll just ask the Eternal Dragon how to make one.
The weakest man in the room had bought the planet its final, desperate second. The sky darkened as Shenron was summoned right on the Capsule Corp lawn. The great dragon trembled in Beerus's presence, quickly revealing the ancient secret. The ritual required 5 pure-hearted Saiyans to pour their light into a 6th. The crew gathered in a circle, counting heads with growing dread.
Oh dear, you have Vegeta, Gohan, and young Trunks and Goten, but that is only 4 to give power.
Wait! There's one more! The baby has Gohan's blood!
The pieces of the cosmic puzzle finally locked into place. As the 5 Saiyans linked hands and the divine energy began to surge, Chi-Chi looked at the swirling vortex of power, her hands trembling with sudden doubt. But before the pressure could overwhelm her, Goku stepped right up to the edge of the light, looking deeply into his wife's eyes with a calm, steadying smile.
You're not doing this for some old god's curiosity, Chi-Chi. You're doing it to keep our home standing. I'm right here. Take their power.
The mortal could not become a god, but he was the anchor that allowed his wife to transcend into one. The circle held because his heart was its center. Golden light poured inward, and Chi-Chi rose transformed, her hair a deep, burning crimson, her body wreathed in a divine flame that was not born of pride or rage, but of pure, interwoven love, every thread of it drawn from the family that surrounded her. She was the Super Saiyan God, and her power was, quite literally, the strength of the people who loved her, made manifest. God met God above the clouds, and this time the battle was a marvel. Chi-Chi trading blows with Beerus as an equal, the sky rippling with each impact. She could not defeat a god of destruction, and she did not need to. She fought him to a standstill, proved her worth, and saved her world.
A worthy opponent, and excellent leftovers. This planet may keep breathing a while longer.
Beerus withdrew at last, thoroughly satisfied on 2 counts, and extremely well fed. The planet was safe, but the terrifying weight of the battle hung heavily over Chi-Chi. Looking at the ruined courtyard and her trembling hands, the realization of how close she had come to losing her family, her friends, and the entire world to a god's whim completely overwhelmed her. Driven by a desperate need to ensure they would never be that vulnerable again, she approached the angel.
You fought quite remarkably, Chi-Chi. It is rare to see anyone survive an encounter with Lord Beerus, let alone while worrying about a side dish.
I don't care about the fight, Mr. Whis, but I felt this awful, intoxicating joy in the violence, and if I don't master it, my family will always be at the mercy of the next god who wakes up cranky.
Fascinating. Most Saiyans only crave the thrill of destruction. If it is mastery you seek, I suppose I could guide you. After all, I am the one who taught Lord Beerus everything he knows.
What did you just say? You're the Destroyer's master?
As the Prince of Saiyans stood completely flabbergasted by the staggering revelation, a quiet understanding passed between the housewife and the angel. The months that followed on Beerus's planet were brutal. Under Whis' strict, ethereal guidance, Chi-Chi and Vegeta learned to lock their volatile energies inside their bodies, preventing their power from leaking out. While Vegeta fought to ascend through sheer, unyielding discipline, Chi-Chi trained with a different focus, visualizing her home, her husband, and her son with every grueling breath, forging a calm mind to anchor her chaotic Saiyan engine. But of all the enemies this family had buried, one had never truly stayed dead. In the cold dark between worlds, the shattered remains of the fallen tyrant clung to a single burning thought, the memory of a golden-haired housewife who had humiliated him and ended his reign. His followers gathered the pieces. The Dragon Balls did the rest, and the Emperor of the Universe drew breath once more, consumed by a hatred with a single name attached to it.
Chi-Chi, this time, I do this properly.
This time, Frieza did not underestimate her. He trained, the one thing his monstrous natural talent had never before required, pouring years of hate into raw discipline, until he unlocked a form no member of his race had ever achieved. His body blazed molten gold, his power ascending past anything he had ever wielded in life. Golden Frieza descended toward Earth to murder the Saiyan and to finally close the wound she had left in his pride. And so the thematic circle of the entire saga drew shut. The destroyer of the Saiyan race had returned, but the woman who rose to meet him did not face him as a conqueror reclaiming her heritage.
You didn't take everything from me. You never even touched what matters.
She faced him as a wife and a mother, standing on the soil of the home she had built, fighting for the life she chose over the blood she was merely born with. Everything the story had ever been about stood on that battlefield. Pushed to her absolute limit against the Golden Tyrant, the months of grueling divine training under Whis finally bore fruit. Chi-Chi reached deeper than she ever had, and found a new fire, the fusion of her god power and her Super Saiyan strength, her hair blazing a brilliant, serene blue. But the framing was hers, and hers alone. This was not the power of Saiyan pride ascending. This was the power of every bond she had ever forged, every meal cooked, every child raised, every second Goku had ever bought her with his life. Her god form ran on family. The two collided, blue against gold, and the heavens themselves seemed to buckle under the force of it. Frieza, for all his hate-forged power, found himself matched by a housewife who fought like the survival of everything she loved depended on it, because it did.
Why won't you fall?
Because I have somewhere to be.
Slowly, agonizingly, the tide turned in Chi-Chi's favor, and the tyrant who had erased her people was driven, once again, to the brink of defeat. But Frieza had learned nothing in death except spite. Beaten, desperate, and forced to his knees by the overwhelming power of the Super Saiyan Blue housewife, the tyrant caught the eye of his last remaining commander hiding in the ridges. Signaling for a treacherous, ringside cheap shot, a deadly energy ring laser was aimed directly at Chi-Chi's back while she stood over the defeated Emperor. The gods and the powerful were completely locked onto the grand spectacle of the tyrant's defeat. But Goku was not. A lifetime of mortal training had taught him to read the entire perimeter when others only watched the clash. He saw the sniper's barrel flash from the rocks the exact microsecond it fired. He lunged forward without a second thought.
Chi-Chi, look out!
There was no time to deflect it. Goku threw his mortal body directly into the path of the beam, taking the piercing energy blast squarely in the chest. As he collapsed heavily onto the dust, Chi-Chi whirled around to see her husband drop, the sudden, horrific echo of Raditz's battlefield flashing before her eyes. Believing she had just lost him all over again, the calm of her divine blue aura violently shattered into a terrifying, white-hot maternal fury. The battlefield fractured into chaos. Driven by absolute rage, Chi-Chi descended upon Frieza like a force of nature, completely obliterating his defense and plummeting the tyrant into the dirt with savage finality. Nearby, the hidden soldier attempted to flee the carnage, only to find his path blocked by a shadow.
Cowardly scum! You dare insult a Saiyan's battlefield with underhanded garbage? Die!
With a single, merciless blast, the prince vaporized the sniper, while Krillin slid desperately across the rocky terrain to the fallen mortal's side.
Goku! Hang on, buddy! Eat this! Hurry!
Frieza fell for the last time, completely broken by the love he had tried so desperately to tear apart. As the dust settled, Chi-Chi powered down, her eyes blurring with tears as she sprinted toward her husband, only to stop dead in her tracks. Helped up by Krillin, Goku was sitting up, coughing, rubbing a freshly healed chest, and flashing that same unquitting mountain road grin.
Whew! Close one! Told you, Chi-Chi! I'm the guy who buys you the 1 second that matters!
Don't you ever do that to me again, you reckless, absolute idiot!
Haha, no promises.
Some distance away, Vegeta stood watching the family embrace, and the arc that had begun in obsession finally closed in understanding. He had spent years trying to copy and surpass Chi-Chi's strength, hunting its source across gods, monsters, and bitter defeats, only to realize the truth right here on the dirt. The strength he'd been chasing was never raw power or royal bloodline. It was power forged entirely in the service of love. He had been climbing the wrong mountain the entire time. He would never say it kindly, of course. He crossed his arms tightly, scowled at the horizon, and muttered a dismissive click of his tongue.
Lucky housewife and her sentimental nonsense.
But he didn't leave, and he didn't sneer. Everyone present understood exactly what the proudest man in the universe had just, in his own impossible way, admitted. It was growth and comedy in a single crossed-armed beat, and it was perfect. So the family that began with a fallen space pod and a cracked head came to rest. Whole, human, and impossibly strong all at once. Chi-Chi was never running from being powerful. She was only ever refusing to let power define her. In the end, she wielded it entirely on her own terms, for the only reason that had ever mattered. Goku was proven, again and again, to be the most essential man in a story full of gods. Gohan carried that legacy of strength and heart together, while little Goten inherited the bright, unquitting joy of a family that had redefined the fate of the cosmos right from their own doorstep.
The strength that matters was never the strength you're born with.
It's the strength you choose, and the people you choose it for.